And then and this kind of ties into cash is we when we're bidding these projects, one of the issues that I have is we get really, really busy. So I spend a lot of time in the field trying to get our workload done, which leads us to we don't have as much work coming in because we're not as aggressively bidding. And so we find these low spots where we're coming off of a lot of work, but then we're running into we don't have as much. And so lesson learned there is whenever we have to there's some balance because we have to have enough work coming in to keep your crews and your equipment and everything covered, but it's like what do you do if one or two jobs push or you have a scheduling delay? And so I'm learning that's been a big one for me is how much work do we take on to where we can still provide really, really good customer service versus not having enough to where we're not covering our bills. And so that's been a tough one for 23 is just trying to understand that schedule and really dial in our scheduling and our bidding.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of Construction MF'ers. I am excited to bring an interesting guest that he and I have met in the last couple of years. We primarily met on LinkedIn, shared information back and forth, commented on each other's posts, and then got to know each other a little bit on a live call. And then recently at the Dirt World Conference. And I am excited to bring to you what I think is just a natural, raw, cool, normal construction person in construction, owning his own business, making it happen. And he's got the best and most unique perspective that I think is going to be very valuable for people to share. And so Joseph Villareal from Villarreal Civil Construction. He is the owner and founder. And Joseph, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me, Scott. I appreciate it.
And I meant what I said in the intro too, Joseph. Like, I think you're just so genuine. I mean, I talk to a lot of people on LinkedIn just through comments. And I do talk to quite a few that end up DMing back and forth, or I comment and we talk. But one of the things that drew me to you, and I got a chance to share that with you at Dirt World, was I was just found you're like how genuine you are and you share what you're thinking and what you're about, but not only behind the scenes, very much out in the front. And to hear like you talk to you over the course of a year and then see you at the Dirt World conference and you tell me about the success you've had and how leaning into that transparency has really benefited you and your business, I thought was the coolest part, man. And so when I asked you to be on the show, I really wanted people to hear that.
No, I appreciate that. It's been a long road. I feel like we're just getting started, but I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So for take a minute, just tell everybody what Villareal Civil Construction does, how you got into the world of construction and what your business is all about. And then I want to dive into a couple of things more specific that you and I have talked about and share with the audience.
Sure. So I've been in construction for about 13 years. I grew up down in the very bottom south, most southern part of Texas. I was always around construction, around tractors, farming, things like that. My father was this very successful car dealer down in the valley, and so I always wanted to be in the car business. I always wanted to be selling cars, around cars, working on cars, anything that had to do with cars, and really more so in business. I love being around the business, seeing how he interacted with his customers, seeing their approach to helping people, and really just the trade and working with people in general. So which led me to when I was in college, I found out that there was a construction science program. I was very interested in it. I always thought I was going to go sell cars. I thought that was going to be my thing. I
Yeah.
wanted to do it. And then I'm at school. I turn around. I see them putting up a tower crane. I thought, oh, that's something that's interesting. It kind of reminded me of growing up and being around equipment and wanting to see job sites and just being able to build things. And so pursued a construction science degree. I enjoyed it. I went to work for a very large general contractor in San Antonio. Had a great experience there, but I was always the guy that wanted to be outside. If I was assigned working in a building, I always found a way to be outside with the site work guys or the utility guys, or whenever we would be paving or doing concrete work, I always wanted to be out there. And so when an opportunity came up um, to do site work and heavy civil work, I immediately jumped on it, and which led me to start my own small business. And it started off as just clearing trees and working in residential, and we transformed that into doing focusing on commercial site work and dirt work, and have just kind of grown from there.
I think that's awesome, man. So where did you get your approach to business? Like, like I mentioned in the intro, you're so transparent and honest, and quite frankly, in a world that a lot of people don't feel comfortable being honest and transparent, whether it's their finances, whether it's their performance capabilities, whether it's how long they've been in business, what they know, what they don't know. But you've been so transparent about all those pieces. Like, where did you get that approach from?
I feel like, I mean, we have nothing to lose. I mean, we're small, and we're taking that aggressive approach to commercial site work. And it's why try to hide things? Why not be fully transparent with your customers, with who you are and what you're capable of doing? But not only when things come up on a job site, or if issues pop up, is why not be transparent? And why not take that approach to trying to help the customer out, and be able to work through things.
I couldn't agree with you more. Can you tell us a little bit, or do you have an in particular story where you're like, this is my approach, this is what I'm going to do, and like maybe you could tell us a story about how you did that and it worked out great, and maybe tell a story how you did that and it didn't.
I think with that, we do a lot of like commercial remodel work, and so really, I look at everything in terms of a value exchange. I mean, we all came up listening to Real AF and Andy, and the value exchange there that he teaches. I try to apply that to construction, and where when we get on jobs where our customers need our expertise and need suggestions and need help navigating a project, we jump in and do everything we can to provide as much value as possible. And most customers really appreciate that, and things go smoothly, and we're able to work through challenges on a project, and then others don't. I don't really have any bad, experiences or stories to tell, just because that there's you can't go wrong doing the right thing, and that applies to construction as well.
I think you're right, man. I think there's a lot of I like to call them stigmas. I think there's a lot of stigmas in
Mhm.
construction that like you have to
Absolutely.
do this or you have to do that or it needs to be this way or this is how it's done. And I've found in this the unique spot where I fit into construction, particularly with mobilization funding, as like someone who works with a lot of different folks, contractors of all different types of scopes of work, but also general contractors, banks, owner developers. Everyone thinks there's this set way it is. But I always am like, you know what? That's not really how it is. Like, there's plenty of contractors out there that negotiate every contract they get. There's also a lot that don't. There's plenty of GCs that won't negotiate any, but there's a heck of a lot more that will negotiate terms. Most GCs they care about performance, number one, first and foremost. But yet all subcontractors seem to think that only thing GCs care about is price. And so there was all these contrasting like stigmas with reality. And I figured like the greatest value that I could provide whenever I got out onto LinkedIn was to tell those stories, because like if everyone's not dealing with what actual is reality, or they think there's something the way it is, but it's actually not that way at all, then everyone's at a disadvantage. And in an industry that already has enough conflict inherently just in the process itself that everyone has to deal with cash flow, banks, the size, just it's hard to do. then I thought like if I can eliminate some of these preconceived barriers that aren't even real, then there could be a lot of value there and make things easier for everybody.
Right.
And you're like
100%.
a perfect example of that, of doing that for yourself in your world as you grow.
Right.
So you mentioned to me different cash flow struggles that as you get started. Cash flow is tough. As you know, construction's hard, cash flow is even harder. What are some of the ways that you've managed around that in learning, like taking the tools that are out there, trying to figure out how to learn those pieces, and like any tidbits you can offer to people in your similar position, or maybe they're a year behind you as they try to grow and start?
So I think first and foremost, working for a general contractor as a superintendent, I had no experience in cash flow. I had no experience. I had very little experience in billing. I had very little experience in really, like, I understood, like, as a project's progressing, like what we're billing for, what we're doing, what our terms are, the paid when paid. Like I understood that going into it, but when I started our business and it was out, we were small and we were doing residential projects where most of them you finish it and as soon as you drive the machine back on the trailer, you get paid. I was very naive and I was very ignorant to real deal commercial construction, cash and cash flow. And so my first year of doing those projects where you're doing the work and then you're invoicing for the work and then you're getting paid for the work. I didn't, I just thought it showed up, to be honest with you. Like I thought, oh, you turn your pay out, you get it notarized and the check just shows up. And so I was very naive. And that's why I was so excited when your book came out. Cause we were working on some projects that were really bigger than what we should have been doing. A lot of rented equipment, lots of trucks, huge fuel costs, and I thought that we were just making great money on these things, and I thought we were just rolling through them no problem. And at the end of the day, when all the dust settles and the bills start coming in, you're really not. And I think that's something that's important for new businesses and small businesses and guys that are making that move into that space, into that world, is you have to understand that it doesn't just show up. And you have to financially plan for these. And I didn't. I mean, I was looking at my proposals and my estimate spreadsheets, and I would look at what we're billing for, and I thought, oh man, we're going to pick up a ton of money in mobilization and we'll be good to go. And then that doesn't even get into, we're not even getting into retainage, and the costs associated with that. But I think for me, being a new business and coming in from I would consider myself a blue collar trades guy. I'm not a business. I mean, I'm not I didn't work a finance job. I don't have any financial background or any financial experience. Um, and so really having a roadmap, which is, leads into your book. When that came out, I really needed it. I needed a reference or a guide of how do we navigate, how do we plan for this, and how do we pay for all this when we're not getting paid for another 45 days or so.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was very ignorant. I've learned a lot since then, and we've grown up a lot since then. But I think that's something that, for your listeners, especially the new guys coming up, is you have to take it seriously. It's not. It's the life. It's more important than oxygen, to a business. And I was telling Sarah in the prep that, being a new business and making some money, the first thing you want to do is go and buy all these new shiny tractors, which I did, and I love them. But when the bill comes for them, it's humbling. It's very humbling, and so it's definitely it's a lot of lessons learned. A lot. My biggest issues have been people and cash, and it's just very difficult. It's very difficult to work through and to learn about.
So tell me, like in the book, like I had a vision for writing that book and what a purpose for what I was trying to accomplish with it.
Mm.
But hearing you, when you mentioned this to me at, the Dirt World conference and hearing you talk about it now, was there something specific in there that like helped it click? Because I'm sure you've heard, I mean, cash flow is talked about all the time.
But
You're aware of it. You have to bid a job. But was there something in that book in particular that like made it click, or was it just like a tool? What was it about?
it was definitely a tool, but what made it click for me was that I didn't even understand like the like planning for it or understand that you're spending money before you even set foot on a job. And so when you outline that in the book, it clicked for me that like we're not doing anything. Like we're not planning at all on this. We're taking our what we think we're gonna spend and billing for it. But and then understanding like I didn't really understand retainage and how that's how you're or how to account for that or how to run without it, knowing you're not going to get it for a long time in most
Right.
cases. And so that was the biggest things that stood out for me in the book was was really the planning aspect of it, and then trying to project and calculate where you're going to be on a project. Those were the two most helpful parts for me.
So understanding retainage and cash flow and a project, like you knew how to estimate a job, you certainly can execute it. You know how to follow the schedule. Once you understood the cash flow and the retainage, knowing that piece, what did you do different, or what have you done different to implement into the either execution or process for you to do bid work, estimate work, and complete work that's different like between now and then?
Definitely in the execution state, in the execution portion of it. So in site work, in commercial dirt, we're the first person on the job, and our customers expect us to throw everything we have at it to get them ahead of schedule or keep them on schedule. And so knowing but my favorite one is when they call us and want to start a job the first day of the month. It never fails, but because I'm like, okay, I know we're not gonna see this for 65 days, but
Yeah.
so definitely the execution of it. In site work, and we try to throw up front all the clearing equipment, all of our subs, all of our trucking. We've tried to schedule things to where we know that hey, if we need a big dozer or something that's going to cost us $27,000 a month, let's hold that. Let's utilize what we can and try to provide. I think it goes back to providing value to your customer too, is saying, hey, what do y'all need right now? If it's the first of the month, where can we start to where we can utilize some of the fleet that we own or lesser or pieces that have a lesser cost? Or maybe we don't need to bring in 100% of the materials on a job. Maybe we can adjust and bring in 20% and still focus on what they need, the project needs are, so that we can coordinate and kind of work the cash around that. So that we're not just burning cash for things that aren't necessarily going to get utilized at the beginning of a project.
That's smart. It's interesting because in theory, the reason you do that then is if you can get out there with your own equipment the
Mm-hmm.
first 3 weeks and then bring the heavy equipment out the last week and get started. Therefore, you're allowed to bill for that. That
Right.
shrinks the gap 3 weeks in that case versus if you
Exactly.
start at the end. Yeah. Is there
Yeah.
anything that do you bid jobs differently now, or do you look at customers differently? Or if certain pay terms are a certain way, do you look at like how you go about bidding those or adding costs or?
There are some like I know. I mean, that a private developer in most cases is going to pay much faster than a school district. But then you're dealing with typically a higher retainage, and so I've learning who your customer. We primarily deal with school districts. We do a lot of school district work. I love doing school district work. My background's in working in districts, and so it's very rewarding for me to work on schools. My wife was a teacher, I can go on and on. But I really enjoy doing that work, but it's a longer term. It's
Mhm.
you're not getting a check 15, 20 days from invoice, like you do in some of the private world. But so you take, yes, we do take into account what types of projects we're looking at from a cash flow basis. Also, too, like what are the needs of it? I mean, there's been some projects that I've looked and said, maybe this is too big for us, or the subcontracting costs are going to be too high for us in terms of like asphalt paving, or we do a lot of chemical stabilized dirt here, and so that's a very expensive subcontractor that is not going to go paid when paid, for us. And so it's definitely influenced the types of projects that we go after, knowing that there's going to be, there's going to be pockets in the job that are going to require a lot of cash. And the first few billings aren't going to be able to generate enough to cover that. And so it's a balance for sure.
Do you have a specific tool that you use to lay out the project and its cash flow ahead of time?
I don't currently right now. I've used the one on your website a few times, and I like it. But most of it we do in Excel with our actual proposal template. We'll kind of map out what we think is going to hit. I don't have a true schedule built for it
Mhm.
of because the projects are so different. But we definitely try to anticipate where we're going to be at, what are our upfront expenses going to be? Because I mean, we're on a normal, $300,000-400,000 project. We're spending 25 to $30,000 really just in showing up between our equipment mobilizations and our GPS equipment and our modeling services.
Yeah, and that's before you even have a week's worth of labor,
Of course, yeah, it's before we even show up. I mean, that's really just showing up.
which, look, that's 10%. I mean, that's a
Right.
lot.
Absolutely. It's huge.
We're making some pretty not significant changes to the cash flow tool. It'll still be the tool, but the ways in which the system on our website can answer questions, ask the questions, and input the information. We're doing some beta testing. We're almost done, but we're calling it the cash flow tool 2.0. Now that we've had it out for a year, we've gotten some really good feedback. And
Mm.
so if you don't mind, I think you'd be perfect for us to test out the 2.0 version. And then, of course, I can just let you have the Excel file, and then you have that file. So you can just use it, integrate it into your own Excel file. So once you have that, you can build it into your Excel. And then
Okay.
whatever template you're using from your system can upload, you can just have it linked directly to it. So it could happen in real time.
Okay. That's neat.
Yep. Best way to figure out an Excel file is you go to the local college, you find the Excel wizard in there and the professor, and they'll build you any kind of spreadsheet you want. If you give them two tabs and tell them, "Hey, please merge these together. That's what you want to do." It's like a perfect project for a college junior, senior. That like you'd be astonished at how well they know Excel.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I do not know well. I'll be transparent with that.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
I had the vision of it in our head, but I didn't design that Excel file. There was somebody that was very Excel savvy that knew it, and they did it so fast. When you tell them what you want to do, it's amazing to
Yeah.
watch. But cool process. Tell me, for you, what's your goals for 2024? We're wrapping up the end of the year here. You've got a system and a plan. I know you have a vision of where you want to go. Maybe share what your vision is for your business and how you've accomplished so far, where you've gotten to, and like what's the next step for you and what you're building into 2024.
My going into 24, we learned a lot of lessons in 23. And I'm still taking the approach of one customer at a time. We get with a customer, we do the absolute best job we can with them, and then if we can organically grow and pick up a second one or and a third one, it's just we're taking the one at a time approach. I'm not trying to cast the net on the entire country or even the state.
Mhm.
We're just trying to do the absolute best job we can, provide as much value as we can. and we want to continue that into 24. I mean, I have some goals. We want to get some more shiny tractors. We want to get some more people, some more trucks and things like that, some more assets. But at the same time too, I think we have a lot to clean up. We have a lot of things that we can do better. And it really, our biggest goal is to build out our office and our estimating process, because we really don't have a very good one right now. And we've been very fortunate with really good customers, but we need to be able to stand on our own in the market and be able to bid competitively. And so that's a goal for 24, is to really dial in our estimating process, dial in our cash flow projecting, um, and just stay really aggressive in on the office side.
That's
Our
cool.
field side's been very strong. We've done very well executing in the field. And so now the next kind of weak link of us is our estimating, for sure.
So you mentioned there's some lessons you learned in 2023 here. What can you give us one of them and like what the lesson is and how you learned it?
Um, biggest field lesson learned is we utilize a lot of GPS systems. It controls our equipment. And so I'd say our biggest lesson learned was that we've learned it's very efficient. It's a very efficient program. But if it's not set up right, it can cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so we had a project where we put the entire site to the wrong elevation.
Mm.
And with that, we hauled off all of a certain amount of dirt that was over what it was supposed to be. So then we had to pay to bring it back. And so that was our biggest cost lesson learned, biggest field execution lesson learned. But it made us better, because now we have a process where we check those things before we finish or before we get too far along in a project. And with that process, we've caught some things that have saved us a lot of money.
That's
So
cool.
at the end of the day, it's a wash, but it was very painful at the time.
You know,
Um,
that's a great lesson in doing work that you can doing the right appropriate work at the right appropriate time, because you could learn that lesson on a few $100,000 project, or you could
right,
learn that lesson on a few $1 million project. The same
right,
lesson, same implementation, same things you learn, but definitely a different cost.
right, right. And then and this kind of ties into cash, is we when we're bidding these projects, one of the issues that I have is we get really, really busy. So I spend a lot of time in the field trying to get our workload done, which leads us to we don't have as much work coming in because we're not as aggressively bidding. And
Mhm.
so we find these low spots where we're coming off of a lot of work, but then we're running into we don't have as much. And so lesson learned there is whenever we have to there's some balance, because we have to have enough work coming in to keep your crews and your equipment and everything covered. But it's like, what do you do if one or two jobs push or you have a scheduling delay? And so I'm learning that's been a big one for me, is how much work do we take on to where we can still provide really, really good customer service versus not having enough to where we're not covering our bills. And so that's been a tough one for 23, is just trying to understand that schedule and really dial in our scheduling and our bidding.
Yeah, and you got to make those estimates and when starts are going to happen, because you got to be ready and prepared. But if you make decisions and then a start gets pushed, you could find yourself doing twice the amount of work at the start of a quarter, or find yourself having no work starting in a quarter, and that your business still keeps going, which has a cost to it, right? Um, and so that you're right. And that is a very fine-tuned balance that you have. That's a walk you have to walk as a business owner in construction, because it's real. That can happen. And
Right.
next thing you know, as one of my customers said one time, like, Scott, right now, I have the most expensive landscaping crew on earth. You should see how expensive these guys I have mowing my lawn, fixing a fence, and doing all this extra work. He's like, I'm not going to send them home, but they're way too expensive to be fixing fences around the yard. And
Right.
sweeping up the shop and like mowing the lawn, but again, he's like, I just didn't plan for this downtime. He kept everybody on, and cool enough, all of his team was very comfortable doing whatever it takes to do. But it was a 30 days while they had no work before the next start. And it was a great lesson he learned. He said the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big one. That's a big one. And but it's also too, it's like you think you're slow, and then the next day the phone rings and you're all of a sudden you're the busiest you've ever been. It's just such a roller coaster. And I never, that is one of the things that starting a business, I never, I thought it would just be we could just go one at a time and it'd be fine. But then it just you're continuing to push and the growth, and it's I don't know, I'm having a blast.
Yeah.
I'm having a blast.
Well, I have one other question for you. So if one
Yeah.
of your future customers is watching us right now, what would you want them to hear and know from you? What they could expect? Like, oh, you know what? He seems like a great guy. I wonder what he's like on the job. What is that? What could they expect working with you?
you're getting you're getting a team that cares about your project. I'm not going to come on here and say we're the fastest. I'm not going to say that we're going to get your schedule ahead and this, but you're going to get a team that cares. Is going to show We're going to show up. Our trucks are clean. Our tractors are clean. Our people are respectful. They care about your project, and we're going to get after it. And we focus on our details. We focus on the grade, and that's just how we operate. We coordinate with other subs, and we care just as much about your project and your bottom line as we care about ours. And that's the approach we've taken with every one of our customers from the beginning. And that's why I guess we've slowed down. We've worked. We haven't exploded our business trying to take on the entire world because we want that very high value, high customer service experience throughout.
That's awesome, man. And what size projects are you guys working on right now that you'd love to be like you're a perfect fit for what? What's good?
We're our ideal project size is between 4 and 600,000. Site work projects. Some of them go a little bit higher with when you bring in other subs, demo and paving and those aspects. But our ideal dirt jobs are 4 to 6, $800,000.
Awesome. Joseph, what question or thing do you wish I either asked you or we talked about that I didn't?
That's a good one. I thought we covered quite a bit.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this talk. I still think, Scott, if someone out there is listening that's they're a year into business, 23 was tough on them. I'd say it gets better, but understanding your cash and understanding what's coming in and what's going out. If you understand your costs, which I still don't, I still struggle with that. We're still learning every day on it, but it makes things so much smoother, and it makes it a lot easier to sleep at night knowing that it's coming, or knowing that you don't, you're not going to be able to cover it. And so just going back to that, really dialing in and understanding your costs, because it doesn't matter how much nice equipment we have. If we can't pay for it, then we're not going to make it.
Right.
And so that's tough because it's so easy to go and just buy tractors and buy trucks, but you have to have the workload and have to have the be cash flow positive to cover it.
Well, Joseph, I got to tell you, man, I love your transparency. You're very encouraging. I don't know if you know that or not, but it's encouraging to hear you talk about your story. Even for me, I know we're not in the same. I'm not out trying to do site work, but I am running a business just like you are, and it's encouraging to know that like the methods and thoughts that we share work, and that someone else is out there doing them and having the same kind of struggles, and it just feels good to be able to know like it works, and it works for you. And I've noticed the same thing for me. And I want you to know that if there's anything I can do to help you, which specifically around cash flow, if you want us to kind of design out your jobs with you, for you, to show you what they'll look like from our perspective. Like, lean on me and my team to be a resource for you to do that. Not as a loan, but just even as building the cash flows for you. And like, we can help you execute some of these projects. You'll figure it out within one or two that we design or lay out with you. Like, if we can add any value at all, man, just please use us. Don't even hesitate.
I really appreciate that. And I
Yeah.
think going into 24, I'm definitely going to be leaning on that relationship, because like I said, we've got some big plans, and we have a lot to clean up, and we have a lot of work ahead of us, and we're very fortunate, but we need to get that dialed in for
Yeah,
sure.
lean on our expertise. We've seen so many cash flows on so many projects, and we have lots of clients in the dirt world. Like, I can show you, oh, hey, here's what it looks like. But here's the two things. If you focus on these and can create a solution for them, you could easily solve it. Very often, I mean, most people don't know this, but very often folks that even apply for a loan with us and they get approved, but when we lay out the cash flow, we give them 2 or 3 points of like focus. And if they can solve for those, sometimes they either need a fraction of the loan they thought they did, and often they don't even need a loan on that project because they've solved the problem, which is cool with us. Now you know what to do, and then you can, there's always another project down the road, and every one of these projects runs a little different, as we all know. So it's not a big deal at all. But please don't even think twice about doing that. I mean it.
Absolutely. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Anything last thing I wanted to touch on is, how can people find you? I know you're out on LinkedIn. I know you use that social media well. How can people find you if they want to hear more from you, share your story, hear this, and reach out to you? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Definitely LinkedIn. I really love that platform. I try to post and go through as much as I can on it. I really enjoy using it, and the people you meet from it they're great. Everyone, it's a community of guys that are doing the same thing that we are, and it's the best place in my opinion.
I love it. I love it. We'll put all your contact information that you want to share in the show notes too, so people can find this either on our LinkedIn platform, on YouTube, or on the podcast as we push these out to all the different podcast hosting sites. Wherever people like to get their podcasts at, we'll put them in there.
I appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Joseph. I really appreciate you coming on. You've been an awesome guest. I appreciate your candor and sharing all the great information. I think there's certainly plenty of people in their journey, whether just starting, in the middle, or they've been doing it for a long period of time, that they could have grabbed something from here that can add a lot of value to what they're already doing and unlock some doors, or maybe be the key to closing some problems. So thank you again, man. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and sharing your insight.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. Well, everybody, if you've liked this show, if there's any value you got at all, I would really appreciate you giving Joseph and I some love. Click on and connect with us on LinkedIn. If you're on YouTube watching this, please click subscribe and check us out on the podcast. And most of all, share with your friends. I wish you all the best, and God bless you. Take care.